Hey guys, so today is Rare Disease Day. It's a day where millions of us across the world come together on the last day of February, and we share our stories of how a rare disease has affected our lives, whether it's being diagnosed with a rare disease ourselves or having a loved one who's been diagnosed. We're not sharing our stories for pity or for you to feel sorry for us. We are simply sharing our story in hopes of raising awareness for our disease, which will hopefully lead to some sort of treatments or a development of a cure. As many of you know, I was diagnosed with a rare disease called Fibrosing Mediastinitis back in 2002 as a result of a fungus called histoplasmosis that I had been exposed to. And many of you have probably been exposed to it as well. And typically it just will exhibit cold or flu-like symptoms, and then you get over it. But unfortunately for me, my body basically overreacted and developed an abundance of scar tissue in my chest to fight off this fungus. Unfortunately, however, that scar tissue continued to grow and continues to crush my main organs, arteries, and veins in my chest area, including my heart, my lungs, esophagus, and airways. At the time of diagnosis, I was given 10 years to live. This rare disease also led to superior vena cava syndrome and another rare disease called pulmonary arterial hypertension. So obviously this is why rare disease has become so important to me. And in a way, it's actually like my new year where I reflect on the past year and I look forward with hope into the upcoming year. And every year I like to share my story. And while I was deciding what I should do this year, I came across a couple of things I had written in the past. And one of them was actually from when I had the opportunity to share my story at the state capitol for Rare Disease Day. So I figured I would kind of put these writings together and share it with you, because not much has really changed since I wrote this. So I know you guys have read my book and you've followed my blog. So some of this will probably be repetitive for those of you who really follow my story, but you've never actually really heard me share my story. And while I really do not like videos and I fumble with my words a lot, I decided to just this year share my story verbally with you guys. So bear with me as I do this. So obviously in 2002, I had a cough that would not go away. So a chest x-ray was ordered to make sure I did not have pneumonia. A mass was found on my right lung, and the assumption, of course, was that it was cancer. I underwent a thoracotomy, which is an extremely intense and painful surgery to remove the mass, only for doctors to discover something they had never seen before. The doctor began by saying, the good news is it's not cancer. The bad news is I can't remove it. He went on to describe the mass as like a ball of solid concrete that he could not take out. He also explained that my body had developed a bunch of collateral veins as a way to compensate for all of the blockage in my chest. He explained that since I had these collateral veins and they didn't know where they were, if he would have continued with the surgery, he could have possibly hit one of those collateral veins and I would have bled to death. Obviously, the surgery was immediately stopped. At this time, I was diagnosed with fibrosing mediastinitis, and at that time, doctors said maybe they knew of 200 other cases in the world with the same disease. The only thing doctors could tell me at the time was that I would basically die by suffocating from the inside out because this scar tissue would continue to crush my organs. Doctors gave me no hope and said there was no cure. I was a single mom at the age of 27 with a 2-year-old little girl, and I had just been given 10 years to live. I was forced to live with my symptoms after the diagnosis because doctors simply either said they couldn't help me or still didn't think anything was wrong with me. But as the years went on, my symptoms began to build momentum and wreak havoc on my life. The scar tissue rapidly progressed doing even more damage to my lung, heart, and airway, resulting in that nasty cough coming back. But now I also had extreme pain in my head as well as chest pressure along with shortness of breath. Even from just wearing shirts, I felt so tight in my chest. It felt like someone was giving me a constant bear hug and not letting go. I would get confused to the point of not knowing where I was, and I would also turn purple from the slightest bit of exertion or almost pass out from the head rushes I got simply from standing up. I was absolutely miserable, and all of these symptoms were making daily responsibilities impossible for me to accomplish most days. Even after I had the diagnosis, though, every time I went to the doctor, they hadn't heard of my disease, or if they had heard of it, they said there was nothing to do. But regardless, they also said they just really didn't think anything was wrong with me, ignoring my plea of how sick I really was. The only thing left for me to do, which should have been the first thing for me to do, was to open my Bible and start praying that someone would be able to help me. I continued going from specialist to specialist, but again, regardless if they heard the disease, they wouldn't run tests and they wouldn't even offer any kind of suggestion as what could be done. They agreed that I was dying, and there was even one doctor who strongly encouraged me to make arrangements for Skylar, who was now 7. The doctor said I needed to, quote, focus on the quality of life, not the quantity of life, unquote, confirming that Skylar would be 12 years old when she lost her mom. I got angry at the doctors, but even more so, I got upset with God because I had been begging him to make this better and for it to all go away. And he had not even changed anything about my situation after I finally reached out to him. And after that doctor encouraged me to make arrangements, I went home and cried because I already felt like such a failure to Skylar, and now I did have to accept the fact that I was dying. But this is when God used something so small. This is when I saw the scrapbook out of the corner of my eye as I was sitting in the apartment all by myself. And actually, this is the scrapbook, and I started looking through it, and I got angry because I didn't want this scrapbook to be the only thing my daughter would remember me by. I'm trying to find that one, this picture. She'll love that I'm sharing this. But that picture, that is what God used as my motivation to make me fight. This girl, she was a cute little thing. But anyway, so God used this scrapbook to motivate me. I put it away and I went to bed because I had one more long day of appointments coming up. And after that long day of appointments, going from specialist to specialist, all repeating the same thing, there's nothing we can do. I'm sorry, fibrosing mediastinitis is a terrible disease, but we can't help you. This time, however, as we were going from doctor to doctor, someone mentioned that they did know of another doctor who might be able to help me. And he was actually at the hospital that day, but he wasn't seeing patients because it was his day off. Well, my parents had been accompanying me to all of these appointments, and they had the faith and the boldness that I was lacking. They refused to leave the hospital until we saw this doctor. And after 10 minutes of talking with him, he not only knew what fibrosing mediastinitis was, he was actually treating someone with it, and he was confident he could put a few stents in my chest and I would be good to go. Well, after 5 years of dealing with these horrible symptoms and nobody having answers, I was not sure really what to think. But I began praying immediately that this doctor was as good as he was confident in himself. And just like that, I had an angioplasty. He put 4 stents in my superior vena cava because it had been 100% occluded or blocked. And all of my symptoms over the last 5 years drastically disappeared. I felt like I finally had my life back. And again, looking back, I realized that was my answer to my prayer, and I hadn't even recognized it at that time. And then 10 days after I got my stents, I met Tim, who I would later marry in 2009. We were blessed with, well, he had a son, and then we were blessed with 2 more kids, even though doctors weren't sure I should or even could have more children. But in 2013, for richer or for poor, in sickness and in health, this is when the world that Tim and I knew came crashing down, making it a perfect opportunity once again for God's grace to shine through, and thankfully our lives would never be the same. After a year of praying over this house, Tim and I moved into our new home. And of course, 3 months later, he lost the biggest contract with our cattle operation. And the uncertainty of filling that barn weighed extremely heavily on us. It was our main source of income. And as if we didn't think, we thought that was horrible, 2 months after Tim lost his job, my health drastically declined, and I ended up in the hospital for 3 days with a blood clot in my chest, resulting in 2 more stents in my superior vena cava, for a total of 6 stents. And again, I got angry with the Lord because for some reason I thought my life should be easy, and I didn't understand why he was making things difficult in every aspect of our lives, not just finances, not just issues with our kids, but now my sickness and the stress of it was just too much for Tim and I to bear. My symptoms continued to persist, and after numerous rounds of testing labs and scans, it was discovered that my disease was progressing yet again, something we didn't think would happen. I was diagnosed with another rare disease called pulmonary arterial hypertension as a result of my FM. That also had a prognosis, but we have learned not to really pay attention to those anymore. I got 2 more stents in my pulmonary artery, so now I had a total of 8 stents in my chest before the age of 40. And because of the progression, we were making countless trips to Iowa City. I was sick of being sick, and I was sick of these appointments. Because when I say countless appointments, they truly were never-ending appointments. In a 2-year span, I ended up having a total of 68 visits to Iowa City specialists alone. This was specifically for my rare disease. Out of those 68 visits, only 20 of them were regular office visits, meaning that the other 48 visits were surgeries, scans, labs, and some type of intervention, usually angioplasty. And I'll kind of give a quick update at the end, but my arms, this is why my arms were so shot now, because of so many angioplasties over the years. And this is what is another challenge for those of us living with a rare disease. We go through all of these tests and treatments, and we don't even know if they're going to work. Not only do we face challenges in finding doctors who are willing to help and listen to us, but then all of these procedures are a guessing game. Because of the disease being so rare, doctors really don't know if any of these things are going to work. But as a patient, I did it because we're willing to try anything in hopes of it being successful. But like that thoracotomy that doctor thought would fix everything, instead, that surgery almost killed me because what they found inside was not what they assumed would be from the scan. And once you're diagnosed with a rare disease, you have doctors who are eager, but you also have doctors who are afraid to help you because they simply do not know what they are dealing with. And as I explained before, having a rare disease means countless numbers of tests and procedures, resulting in a pile of financial debt because of going from specialist to specialist, trying to figure out the right diagnosis. And while I am extremely thankful that the doctors at the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics have been able to intervene and help me manage my symptoms, the disease itself that is causing my symptoms cannot be stopped. So imagine trying to go through life with a smile on your face while you can literally feel something killing you from the inside a little more each and every day. Yet nobody has answers to help, nothing to improve the symptoms, having a constant stabbing pain in the chest or crazy heart palpitations that knock the breath out of you mid-sentence. No options for relief. except to learn how to adjust and live with all the pain and progression of such a terrible, unknown disease. And how do I explain to my kids that nothing can fix their mom simply because there are not enough people who have the same ouchies as I do? And it makes me extremely sad knowing that 1 in 10 of you are facing a similar battle. And I got tired, guys. I got tired of the doctor visits. I got tired of being sick. I was tired of the bruises on my arm and the sore body from all of the procedures. And after a night of my family just fighting and being so grumpy with each other, I had been in so much physical pain even from breathing. I was done. I was going to give up. I convinced myself that I was a lousy mother, not only to Skylar, but now to 3 more kids. I was barely strong enough to walk up the stairs, let alone play with them. I finally prayed that prayer, and I know a lot of us have struggled with this. I told God I didn't want to do it anymore. I felt like a huge burden to my husband, and I felt like my kids had already lost their mother, and they deserved a better mom, a mom who wasn't always sick or in the hospital all the time. And then after years of fighting for answers, getting answers didn't even fix me. I had finally hit my rock bottom, and come to the terms with the fact that maybe doctors were right after all, that I was indeed dying. It had been 11 years since my diagnosis, and I was getting worse by the minute. So I told God, if this disease is going to kill me, you need to take me now. I'm done. It's not fair to my family. It's not fair to my kids. But just like he used that scrapbook so many years ago to encourage me, in my weakness this time, God showed me his love through my little 3-year-old daughter. I had snuck up to my room because I don't like to have my kids see me suffering. And out of the blue, Leah, 3 at the time, comes in, gives me the biggest hug. And yes, it did hurt, but she gave me the biggest hug and said, "I love you, Mommy." And then she just skipped right out of the room. And just like that, my heart changed. And I realized, sick or not, my babies still love me and they still need their mom. And I had had so many opportunities in the past, but I never got it. But this time is when I realized I had only been calling God in crisis. And now I was ready to start walking with him. It wasn't my attitude or my strength that had gotten me this far. It was his work and his mercy. And I knew he was not done with me yet. So if I wanted to come to terms with my illness, I needed to stop pretending like I was okay, because I was not okay. I was scared and I was angry, and I knew that God was the only one who could get me through this. And I needed to surrender everything to him, not just my fear, but my stubbornness, my bitterness, and my pride, which I still struggle with my stubbornness. So Tim and I talked, and we knew that our marriage was suffering greatly. So we reached out to a local pastor who got us involved in a small group, and being held accountable in our faith by other believers was exactly what we needed. I had wanted everything to be back to the way it was before my symptoms and before all the financial hardships. But one Sunday while I was sitting in church, my pastor said something that stuck with me. And from that time on, I began praying that for my circumstances to continue to change me, not just for my circumstances to change. And while obviously this isn't the life that I thought I would live, the truth is, if it wasn't for my fibrosing mediastinitis, it would be something else. Everybody has their share of hardships, and it actually scares me to think of where my life would be without this disease. I have now lived 9 years past the prognosis of what the doctors said I would live. And while I thought my disease broke me, it was actually a blessing in my already broken and selfish life that I had been living just for myself before. The disease has been an opportunity for me to grow in my faith. And because of my personal relationship with Jesus, knowing that he died on the cross for my sins, my life has been blessed beyond anything I could have ever imagined for myself. It took a risky surgery to even be properly diagnosed, and then that rare disease left me to feel so afraid, defeated, confused, and hopeless. And while doctors still agree that this is a horrible disease, they are starting to listen to me. They're asking me questions, and they are beginning to acknowledge that telling me I look good is not a compliment. We need research, and we need funds to fuel that research. Doctors want to help us, so we need the resources to gain that knowledge to cure, if not at least offer better treatments. I am sharing my story in hopes of encouraging others to never give up. And I know right now, guys, there's some of you that are really probably in that dark place. And you probably want to punch me because I am being too positive or encouraging. I know, because I was in that spot for a very long time. I would hear stories of people with my disease having treatments that were helping them, and I just like, I was happy for them, but it's like, well, good for you, but that's never going to be me. But there is hope. I have been fighting fibrosing mediastinitis for a total of 19 years. And within those 19 years, I have seen more treatments become available. And I truly believe they are getting so much closer to a cure. And while I know some of these treatments and the new treatments might not benefit some of us who have had it for so long, we need to keep sharing our story because doctors are learning from us. And if we can share our stories in hopes that they will learn more about this disease so that the next person who is diagnosed with fibrosing mediastinitis has a better option, then it's worth it to me. And you have to keep fighting. And if you can't fight, let your loved ones fight for you when you can't. And if you don't have a loved one, let me know and I'll send my mom. But really, no matter how broken you feel, make a conscious effort to find that motivation to keep pushing forward and trust that God will keep his promises, even when it doesn't seem like he is. In fact, I have had angioplasties since 2007. So for 13 years, doctors have been doing some sort of procedure on me, and my disease is still progressing. And this past year, it was decided that my pulmonary artery stents, they continued to close right after we tried opening them. So we decided now I'm at the point where the benefits do not outweigh the risks. So we will not be accessing my pulmonary artery stents anymore. And then my SVC stents, superior vena cava stents, doctors had been going through my arms. But like I said, I have had so many angioplasties that this past year, my arms kind of gave out. They couldn't access the stents through there, so they had to start going through the groin. Unfortunately, they started having problems through the groin because I've had procedures through there as well. So really, we're trying to intervene the least amount as possible now because my body is just slowly, it's been through a lot. And while that sounds scary, I can look back and see how the Lord has worked through this disease with me. And I have finally accepted that he is in control. And I have that peace that continues with these hard circumstances. And I can finally see why that doctor said what she said, even though I was so offended at the time. Life truly is about the quality, not the quantity. So make it count. Find something good in each day, no matter how hard it is, and keep pushing forward. Alone we are rare, together we are strong, and I'm going to keep sharing my story for anyone who will listen, in hopes of encouraging you guys to keep fighting, and in hopes of finding a cure for fibrosing mediastinitis. Thanks.